Hey everybody, Ty the TV Guy here, aka one of the biggest Stranger Things fans in the world, and today I have another video coming back for you, giving my favorite things from every season. I'm going to be going through my favorite character, my favorite moments, and my favorite episodes from every single season of Stranger Things thus far as we await the release of Season 5. And to be quite honest with you, I don't even have my answers for these questions that I'm posing in this video prepared ahead of time. I'm just going to think of it in the spot and see what comes to me as far as my favorites for all these categories. So before I get started though, I want to say like this video, subscribe to my channel, helps out more than you know, and feel free to comment your opinion on your favorites from each season, whether that be your favorite character, favorite episode, or your favorite moment from each season. But okay, I'm going to start naturally with season 1 and work my way up. So I'm going to start with my favorite character in season 1, and to me this boils down to a few, and honestly I've come to notice that my favorite characters from early on in the show tend to be my favorite overall characters as well. And so the big three for me personally in this first season is Hopper, Eleven, and Mike. Those are the top three characters for me. And so in determining which one's my favorite out of those three, I think I narrow it down. I love Mike. I absolutely love his energy, the friend he is, how he accepts Eleven. So many things about him in season 1, but I push him to the side and I really get down to the two big dogs, which are Eleven and Hopper in this scenario, I think. And I think I have to slightly give it to Hopper as my favorite character here in season 1. I think Hopper just has such a great story arc, even just within this one season now. They kind of expand on it later in the show, maybe even retcon some things with, the backstory of the Agent Orange he used and stuff like that in season 4 on that big monologue he goes on. But just speaking strictly with season 1, he has a good arc just within this season, and I think we see him change from kind of a lazy cop who's not afraid to show up late to work, doesn't really care, thinks he's going to be fine, he's a small town cop, nothing happens here anyway, to, a couple of the events in the town, especially the disappearance of Will, but also the loss of his friend Benny Hammond, the disappearance of Barb, all this conspiracy going on. It kind of like motivates him and brings the not only just like the good detective skills and the professionalism back out of him, but it also like brings him back to being a good person who finds things to care about again. And so I think that's like a really moving story to follow related to Hopper. 11, really impressive acting by Millie Bobby Brown, especially in this first season. I think it had to be challenging to play a character that was so powerful but that couldn't talk very well and socialize very well like that, and I think she absolutely nailed it. Nothing she could have done better. I just think Hopper for me is like the perfect character and had the perfect season in this first one, and I especially love how it ends out, paralleling the experiences he had with his daughter and his wife in the past, and how that all comes to fruition while saving Will. I think it was perfectly written and timed by the creators of the show. So Hopper's my favorite character in season 1 for those reasons. Generally, I could go into more. He just has a great personality too. Now going into my favorite moment or scene, I think this is going to be the hardest thing, especially for like the first 2 seasons here, thinking through. I mean, there's just so many classic moments in season 1, so many uses of Eleven's powers that come to my mind when thinking of the best one. You have her flipping the van, you have her saving Mike from the cliff. And even though those are really epic moments, I don't think either of those are going to be my final answer as far as like the very best scene in this first season. You have a lot of great scenes in the final episode, the final couple episodes really. Obviously you get the iconic scenes early in the season with Joyce and the lights, and Will spelling out "run" on the wall. So many great things happening here, and I might honestly have to end up giving a pretty boring answer here, unfortunately. I think kind of what I already referenced with Hopper being my favorite character in this season, and the quest for Will kind of changing him for the better and bringing the good back out of him. I think just that scene where it all comes to a climax at the end of season 1 in the final episode, and he's saving Will, he's trying to resuscitate him, Joyce is there crying, the emotional music playing in the background, paralleling it to not being able to save his daughter but being able to save Will for Joyce and for his friends. I think it's a really moving moment. I think I have to give it the title as the best moment of season 1, even though, like I said, so many great uses of Eleven's powers, so many good just like interpersonal moments as well, but obviously it's hard to rate those as like the very best just based on not having like as groundbreaking an effect on the overall plot of the show. But love so much in season 1, but I got to go with that as my favorite moment. And then my favorite episode here, I'm not going to spend too much time on it when it's the conclusion episode. It is season 1, episode 8, The Upside Down. I think it's a perfectly done conclusion episode for a first season of a show. You know, a lot of people said the show could have ended after this, and that is true, but I'm glad they've continued it for sure. So I'm going to go with that. Episode 7 is also great. Really, every episode of the season actually hits, but, you know, episode 7 especially, Holly Jolly. Episode 3, also a banger, but I'm going to go with the conclusion of season 1 as my favorite. Now getting into season 2, and I'm going to be making another full video, just an FYI, about why season 2 is my favorite season. No, I'm not just saying that to go against popular opinion on the internet. I know it's pretty popular to have it as the worst season, but I genuinely enjoy it the most. I'm going to be making a full video about that, but just wanted to shout that out real quick. You can keep your eyes peeled for that video coming. But as far as my favorite character in season 2, there's a lot of quality performances here, and so I gotta acknowledge many of them. I still really like the big 3 that I mentioned from earlier in this season 2. I think they're all outstanding still. I think Will also enters the conversation here. The physical acting from Noah Schnapp is incredible. It's Will's best season by far, not even close. Just the most involved and important and on screen that he is, of course. In season 1, he was still cool, but wasn't on screen much. So, you know, season 2, Will's best season, definitely in the discussion here. I also think Lucas takes a big step up, maybe my favorite season for him as a character as well. Steve, obviously, breaks through and becomes one of the most lovable characters in the show, grows that relationship with Dustin. There's just so much quality going on here, man, and it's hard to pick an absolute favorite. If I have to pick my favorite for season 2, I think I'm going to go with a character who I don't even think it's their best season, to be honest with you, but I might just go with 11. Now, look, I'm a sucker for backstory. I'm a sucker for those lower profile character moments that maybe some other people aren't as into, and I can understand that. You know, some of the slower portions of season 2 maybe is what drives people away from it and kind of has it as the lowest ranked season for a lot of people, but that's some of the stuff that draws me in, those character details, those like I kind of mentioned, like low profile, just like moments with herself where she's discovering things about her past. She's growing angry about certain situations. I think that the character depth given to 11 here and the different things she has to go through and deal with and how she finds herself, I think it's a really good character journey that, you know, rivals some of the best in the show. I think Steve is obviously spectacular here. He's not quite at that peak where I'm like, okay, he's my favorite in this season yet. Hopper's still really good, maybe slightly less involved in ways that I like him in like action scenarios, kind of like we see in season 3, or just like really deep into that detective work like he is in a season like the first one. So I really love Hopper still, always going to love his personality and everything. The character dynamics with 11 really strong, and part of why I love her character so much here, but I'm not going to go with Hopper. And then Will, like I said, is just spectacular, really riveting story following him and how he kind of becomes possessed throughout this season slowly, but just not quite good enough or like a personal favorite of mine enough to crack that number 1 spot. So it's going to be 11 here for me. My favorite moment of season 2 is probably going to come as a surprise to a lot of people. I have narrowed it down to something in my mind, and it kind of relates once again to my favorite characters. I think, honestly, my 2 favorite moments of the season are actually just conversations between characters, and that's something you might not commonly hear a lot as an opinion, but for me, the conversation between Dustin and Steve when they're kind of walking like in that trail in the woods, and kind of talking about, you know, Dustin having a crush on Max and Steve giving him some advice and becoming that older brother figure for him, kind of where their relationship breaks through. I think that's a really important scene for those characters and just the show in general. So that would probably be like my number 2 moment, but I think my favorite is in the finale episode of the season when Hopper and 11 are driving in the car and have like a 2-3 minute long conversation about, you know, Hopper getting all mad about things and he's sorry about it, but it's because he's worried he's going to lose her like he lost his daughter. And then 11 kind of stays a little closed like she always does, but I think it was great vulnerability on Hopper's side and just such interesting character dynamics between the two of the most gifted actors on this show coming together at the peak of their powers, in my opinion. So that scene is just awesome. I love watching it and hearing the dialogue every time. The most visually impactful scene on me is 11 closing the gate right after that, so that's really good as well. But that would be my favorite individual scene for season 2. And then my favorite episode of season 2, it's between Episode 6, Episode 8, and Episode 9. I'm actually going to go with Season 2, Episode 8, though, The Mind Flayer. I think this episode has some of the best group dynamics of any in the entire show. We get literally the whole crew together at a point in this Episode 8, which is something I just absolutely love about the show, and it's kind of not replicated the same way it is here at many other points in really the entirety of like any other point in any other season. So you literally get everybody in that room at the Byers house, except for 11 basically, but even she returns at the very end of it. So really good stuff going on in that episode. Good, funny dialogue at times, bringing levity to the scenes. Also, still a lot of mystery around what's going to happen with Will and how they're going to get out of this situation. Some tense moments. Everybody groups together and stands for battle with the Demogorgons, and then we get the epic conclusion with 11 back. So that is my favorite episode of Season 2. But alrighty, now we're on to Season 3. My favorite character in Season 3, once again, there's a lot of good options here. I think that 11 is arguably at her best in Season 3. I mean, 1 through 3, you really can't go wrong with saying it's 11's best season. I do think that Hopper is still really good, but probably not going to be my choice here. I think that Steve is really, really awesome and probably in his best state as well, even though I think you could say 3 or 4 for that. And Dustin's also really awesome here. Robin has a really good premiere season for her character. So some good options here. I think ultimately I could go 11 again, but I think I'm going to give love to Steve for the sake of mixing it up here. It's really close between those two and Hopper probably for me. So I'm going to give Steve the slight edge here in kind of like a 1A, 1B scenario with 11. But we're going to say Steve's my favorite character for 3. Some of the best comedic moments in the show come with him and Robin getting captured in the Russian underground lab when they're under that laffy gas. I mean, that's one of the funniest scenes when he's kind of giving his whole spiel and like, "You're long gone, you big asshole," love that scene with Steve. And then I just love the adventure they go on. The relationship with Dustin continues to develop into something super entertaining and special. And yeah, he's just phenomenal. My favorite moment of Season 3, I think you guys are starting to see a theme here. It involves Hopper once again. Now, it isn't the scene where he, quote unquote, dies in the moment or sacrifices himself. That's a good scene, was very emotionally riveting at the moment. Kind of takes away slightly from it now that he's alive. But that wouldn't have been my favorite anyway. My favorite is the scene that he's not technically in, but where 11 reads Hopper's letter in a very emotional, devastating fashion almost, you could say, for her and for the audience simultaneously, as the song Heroes, my favorite song from the show, maybe plays. Super emotionally impactful scene. Those are the scenes that draw me to a show like this, even more than some of the crazy sci-fi and action stuff that goes on. I love those grounded moments in the show, and that's what this scene provides. So that's got to be my favorite. I do love just a lot of the stuff that happens in that finale episode, though. It is such an awesome episode. Despite some of my Season 3 criticisms, that finale episode is unbeatable. I love the, Lucas throwing the fireworks. I like 11 tapping into Billy's emotions and both of them kind of saving the day in a different way. I like Steve, ramming the car into Billy. So much good stuff happens, but I already gave my answer. And then I already kind of gave away my favorite episode for this season. This is going to be the second time I select the finale episode as my favorite. The Battle of Starcourt, like I said, undeniable, unbeatable, constant thrill and action, but also layered with good and entertaining storytelling as well. They didn't just throw all the technical stuff out of the bag just for like glitz and glamour. This episode still really ties everything together well while still being super entertaining, action-packed, and thrilling. It serves as anything and everything you could want in a TV episode, in my opinion. And now, last but not least, we go to Season 4, and the first topic here is to explore my favorite character, and this one doesn't need too much explanation. It is Max Mayfield. I think it's hard to not have that opinion about Season 4. I mean, the acting from Sadie Sink just took such an upgrade. Not that she wasn't a good actor before. She was great. But she became like the best in the show, I think, alongside David Harbour. And wow, I mean, it's just impressive acting chops all throughout. And there was just clearly like an emphasis to put, the focus and the onus of everything that's going on around Max. I mean, this season was molded to her, especially with that Hawkins storyline. So she got the spotlight and she knocked it out of the park and had some of the most impressive scenes, leading me to my next answer for my favorite scene of Season 4 being running up that hill. I mean, it still hits to this day. I've watched it 10 plus times. Still love every second of it. Love what it does for her character in the moment. Love what it stands for in a broader sense, battling depression and seeing a way out and choosing hope, choosing your friends. It was great metaphorically, but great also just as like a standalone concept and moving the plot forward with that scene. And yeah, that just has to be my favorite moment. I'd say another really great moment is the unveiling of Henry as one and Vecna all at the same time in the Massacre at Hawkins Lab episode. That's also really good. But I gotta go with the running up that hill scene as my very, very favorite. And then as for my favorite episode of season 4, it's not quite as straightforward as the character and the scene are for this season, in my opinion. Dear Billy is definitely in contention. But the Massacre of Hawkins Lab is honestly a masterfully crafted episode, I think. That whole final 30 minutes is just crazy and such a great plot twist, probably the best within Stranger Things, to this point at least. And then I also got to give respect to the Piggyback, the finale episode, and episode 8, Papa. Both really, really good. Enjoyed both of those episodes and others throughout the season. I do ultimately think I'm going to slightly give it to Dear Billy, though, and I think it could be the best episode in the entire show. So, actually behind the Battle of Starcourt, but it's a top 3 episode in the entire show, and I think it's a top 1 episode in season 4. Absolutely love that scene, but even the build-up in that episode just felt like that's where season 4 really picked up. The storyline got more interesting, was starting to make more sense for me, especially upon first watch. I was kind of confused up until that episode, and all the pieces came together in a tasteful way, and it ended with a bang. What an incredible episode. So Max and her scene kind of dominates the season 4 picks here for me, but is what it is. But all right, guys, those are my favorite episodes, characters, and scenes from every season so far of Stranger Things, and I'm excited to figure out what those favorites are going to be for the final season. Drop your opinions on anything I said in this video down below, and make sure to like and subscribe to my channel as well for more Stranger Things content, especially upon the release of season 5, of course. And hey, it's been fun. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.